Howdy, my name is William Mangan, and this is my second speech for COMM 203. Here's my keyword outline, and here are the sources on the back. The title is called Reshaping Capitalism for the Future. So, growing up, almost every kid, at least at some point in their life, has the idea that they want to be a billionaire. They want to be the one that makes all the money. They want to be the one in power. They draw to the power, and when they see people like Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk, Bill Gates in power, they see that and they crave that as kids, which is an interesting connotation. Now, as a kid, my greatest wish was to be super rich. I wanted to be the billionaire. I wanted to be the one that came up with a new big idea that was going to make me $1 billion and keep my family going for 10 generations. However, while my opinion has changed since then, I still understand how tempting it is as a kid and as an adult. So billionaires, however, they have a huge problem. They can be extremely selfish with the money that they get, and they may not deserve the power that they have in our United States society of capitalism. While they may be geniuses, there's also a connotation of selfishness and greediness that might get in the way of that for the better of the people. The wage gap is obviously growing in the United States. Rich people are way richer and poor people are way poorer. And we need to find a way to counterbalance that. And the most important way to do that is to educate ourselves on what the next steps are in the future. So going back to the original thought of capitalism in the United States goes all the way back to Jamestown in 1607. According to the Harvard Business School, it was not always seen as greed, rather it was about religious freedom, free trade, commerce, and rights to speech. You have to look at it from the colonist perspective. They were trying to leave a radical Britain/England, and they didn't want, they wanted the religious freedom more than anything, but capitalism gave them the idea of freedom in the markets, freedom in trade, freedom in everything, and that is why that is our system in the United States to this day. Now, obviously, as time has gone on, stock markets, big tech companies, social media, they've kind of formed this new version of capitalism. It's not the same that it was in 1607, and while it may be good and while it may be bad, there's arguments to be made for both. It's definitely caused a fluctuation in the economy, and as it's shown by the gap between the rich and the poor. So there needs to be reinvestment by the billionaires in our society. If we don't have these people with all this money use it for good, then we're not going to be able to set up our next generations. Capitalism requires reinvestment to be successful. Speaking of reinvestment and giving and being unselfish, there's many billionaires out there that do have that tendency to be greedy with the money that they have. For example, the second richest person in the world, Jeff Bezos, who's the CEO of Amazon, formerly, he, according to the Market Realist, has a net worth of $189.1 billion. In contrast, according to the Inquirer.net, Bezos makes $321 million per day, $149,353 a minute, and $3,715 per second. And according to inequality.com, the top 0.1% of the wealthiest people in our country have over 39 times as much net income brought in compared to the bottom 90% of the U.S. population. That is code for the top 0.1% have 39 times the amount of money than 295.4 million people in the United States have in total. And Jeff Bezos, according to another article by the Market Realist, is estimated since August 2020 to only donate 0.1% of his income to charitable foundations. Now, it is his choice on what he wants to do with his money, but the question is it going to hurt the economy when these billionaires keep this greed and hold it inside them instead of putting it back into the community for the future? Now, there are also billionaires that do a great job of giving back to the community. Forbes magazine shows that Warren Buffett, who is the sixth richest person in the world, has given over $42.8 billion to charitable foundations since 2021. So there are both people. There can be people that use their money for themselves, and there can be people that use their money for themselves and for others on top of that. And that's the beauty of capitalism, is you get what you earn, but you can choose on what you need to do with it. Now, with all this in mind, the long-term effects for this are going to be very interesting on what we're going to do with the rich and what we're going to do with the poor and how we're going to be able to counterbalance them to make sure that they stay close enough where our economy doesn't fall. But even though I've kind of been bashing capitalism throughout this entire speech, capitalism does have so many good qualities on positive spurts to economic growth if used in the correct way. According to World Bank blogs, and I quote, "The emergence of rich people and rich companies in poor countries is a reflection of a healthy economy," which is completely true because, and I'll give you an example for this. Imagine that there's 1,000 grocery stores that all do the same thing over and over again. Each owner has to hire certain people to do it a specific way, how to bag groceries a specific way, how to inventory a specific way. Imagine if you just had one really big grocery store company that ran all the stores like Kroger does now. So while that may not seem good in its sense, in reality, that one Kroger store can use all those employees to learn the same thing. So that way, the employees that are left over that are no longer going to work for grocery stores can start reinvesting in their minds back towards capitalism, to reinvent, to innovate, to have ideas to shape the future for the better. So it actually does help capitalism in the sense of big companies coming in and ruling over the small ones. There's a really good movie that my parents forced me to watch when I was a kid called You've Got Mail, with Tom Hanks and Meg Ryan. And Meg Ryan had this little bookstore, and Tom Hanks had this massive bookstore that was taking over New York City. And over time, while they even came to love each other, Meg Ryan eventually admitted to Tom Hanks at some point in the movie that Fox Bookstore, which Tom Hanks owned, was just too big. And it had so much for the public that it was going to rule everybody, and it was almost for the better of society, because now Meg Ryan could find her new journey in life and wasn't running a bookstore that wasn't making enough money. And so it's interesting to translate the difference between big tech companies, massive companies versus mom and pop shops. What's the best version of it? And capitalism so far has been favoring the big tech companies and the larger corporations like Amazon. So there are arguments to be made for both. Obviously, capitalism has so many benefits, but also so many downsides, like every other system in our world history. But America seems to have chosen the right path, at least for the last 300 years. It's just the question of how long is this economic stability going to stay? How much more is the gap between the rich and the poor going to change in our economy that's eventually going to make it hard to live in? And hopefully we never get to that point, but also hopefully the United States makes the correct decisions in the future to change the world in a better way. Thank you so much, and Giggle.